which we're featuring on our website right now. And when we did our intro video, when we just had our splash page up a couple weeks ago, we had women who were in their 60s and 70s, saying what the mile means to them. And we also had people in their 20s and 30s mention what the mile means to them, and even those that aren't just runners. There's something to the mile that everyone can relate to, and that's what we were really trying to capture with this campaign.
Right.
If I can jump in here,
sure.
For a guy like Mo Farah, it creates an awkward social situation and a very frustrating situation. For instance, if you're a college guy today and you mentioned the guy from Ireland, you might run 10-mile type races, but they're all 1,500 meters. And once a year you get a shot at the 4-minute mile, so you're tremendously nervous. But for a guy like Mo Farah, Mo could be standing at a cocktail party and somebody could ask him and he could say, well, I've run 3:33 for 1,500 meters, which is way under 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. But a guy could be standing next to him, and they could say, what's your best? And he could say, I ran a 3:59 mile. The person is going to go, wow. And poor Mo, can beat this guy by 9 seconds, but just by some goofy hang-up, he hasn't actually run a mile under 4 minutes. So
right.
It's just something that you have to rectify.
And that's something else. Mo Farah, the gold medalist at the World Championships this past summer in the 5,000, even he wants to be a part of that mile. And really, he's more of a longer distance runner. He's more of a 5K, 10K guy. But the fact that he wants to etch his name in the mile rankings is something else as well. Ryan and David, I just want to mention to you that you mentioned the I Am the Mile aspect of your website. We have an I Am the Mile cardboard sign in the booth right now next to our Runaround banner, so we support you guys in what you do.
Excellent.
But as it is, you mentioned Mile Maniacs, you mentioned petitioning state federations. What can people do to help bring back the mile?
Well, first they can go to our website, and it's very simple, bringbackthemile.com, and there's a lot of good information on the mile, its history, all-time lists, and also, as you mentioned, right on the front page is the state petition. And so part of our goal here is to engage people, is that change only comes if you get enough of a groundswell. And so people that want the mile back at the state level, sign the petition, because that information, those signatures are integral to this campaign at the state level. And if those federations get enough people saying, hey, I want the mile back in Maryland, I want the mile back in Minnesota, California, at the very least those federations have to listen to that voice. Mm-hmm. And in general, I hope that those federations think about the mile is a better way also to promote the sport, because people do get the mile across the board, be it an athlete, a fan, a non-fan. People get the mile. They don't get the 1,600, and they never will.
Right. And we agree, and that's why we're proud partners of you guys at Bring Back the Mile. So at the very least, if you don't visit bringbackthemile.com, visit runningmaryland.com. We will link you to bringbackthemile.com. Please check it out. It's a very nice site. They just launched a new website. It looks fantastic.
Thank you.
I remember way back when I was in grammar school doing a book report on Glenn Cunningham, and that's what got me to be a runner. Seeing his challenges in running a really fast mile, and that's what kept me going. And Marty, I'm sitting here looking at a picture of you and Jim Ryan from May 14th, 1971, the Dream Mile. I remember sitting around the TV watching Wild World of Sports and watching the anticipation of that race. Can you reflect back on that race a little bit?
Well, the first thing, though, I'd like to point out, Glenn Cunningham was from Kansas, as was Jim Ryan. And then recently, yesterday, something came across my desk that I read about Glenn Cunningham, and there's so many things about him that I even forgot. I mean, he held the world record. He held the indoor world record. He was a medalist in the Olympics. I wasn't even, that aware of that. But because he did those things, Jim Ryan, growing up in Kansas, says to himself, this is something that Americans are good at. I should try to do this. And then Ryan breaks 4 minutes when I'm maybe a sophomore in high school. So I'm brought up in an atmosphere of this is something that Americans are good at. I should try to do it. You talked about the generation gap. So 20 years goes by and we don't have great milers for a while. Americans grow up thinking that this is not something that we're good at, that they don't know the history, and that's part of what we need to get back. It goes back to, I remember the early days of cycling, the Tour de France, before Greg LeMond came along, and even before him was a guy named Jacques Boyer, who was American. Until that time, Americans just didn't believe that they could be cyclists, and it took, Lance Armstrong is just a part of the lineage that Greg LeMond set up, and we had it in the mile. We've lost it. This can be a step in us getting that back.
Yeah, but what did you? Just curious. I mean, that is such an iconic race, that Dream Mile. Do you look back on that with fond memories? Were you and Jim Ryan friends? How would you describe that?
Well, yeah, of course, I have fond memories, probably fonder than Jim does, because I won the race. And I feel bad about that because, like my Mo Farah, thing I dreamed up before, a lot of people, Jim Ryan did so many great things, world records in the 800 and the 1500 and the mile, but probably the race that got the most publicity was that Dream Mile. So he's kind of remembered for a race he lost almost as much as the ones he won. So I sort of sometimes feel bad for Jim, but I feel great for myself because, it was a great race for me. And what happened there, why people say, well, why was that such a great race? Well, there were a number of things. The NFL and the NBA and all those things weren't as strong as they are today, but it was also that it seems like every time you have two good milers from the same country, it gets very popular. You had Ovett and Co. from England more recently, right. But before my time, you had Glenn Cunningham and some of his rivals, and you had Arnie Anderson and Gunther Haig in Sweden. So you almost can't have just one great miler, but if you have two from the same country, and then they're close to the world record. What people like to see from track and field is they like to see world records, and I think every sports fan, and Ryan might find this out if he promotes races, people like to go to a track meet if they think they're going to see a 4-minute mile.
Exactly.
It's like saying, hey, you're going to this game, and LeBron James is going to make 2 baskets from half court. And, you just want to see that. It doesn't happen every day. It's a mark of excellence in a sport. So for the fans and the runners alike, it's great to have the milestone to aim at.
And we agree. Marty, we know you have a gig to play. We know you're a guitarist, so we wish you the best of luck with that upcoming gig. Ryan and David, thanks for joining us. We at Running Maryland, we fully support you guys. Let us know what we can do. We'll be sure to post more information on runningmaryland.com. So thanks for joining us.
Gentlemen, thank you much.
Thanks for your interest.
Okay, and coming up, we're going to reflect on all this. The mile is very important to us, so we'll be talking about that and take some calls in.
Feel free to call in, 410-481-1300.